Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 38th CALLERLAB Convention. Today's Monday, April 18th, 2011, and this is the panel called Singing Call Adaptation. I'm your moderator, Joe Saltel, and your panelists are on my right, Tom Rudebock, and, whoops, I missed your hand. There we go. And Frank Lescrinier from California. If you're a typical caller, the very first thing you did in square dancing besides dance is learn a singing call. I'm sure we all have done that. My first one was King of the Road on Wagon Wheel. Gee, and I wish I had it recorded from that time. You know, you're right, I didn't. I don't. However, as you grow as a caller, you still learn to keep singing calls as the sweet spot in your tip. That's what I call it. That's the time that during your patter call you can be a showman through your choreography and the use of different types of music. But this isn't a showmanship panel. But you can show your personality through singing calls and also through your use of calls used as the choreography in your singing calls. Also, we learn very soon that many of our dancers might not be able to do the exact singing call figure that's printed on the old cue sheet that you get with the singing calls. So that's here in this panel, which is Singing Call Adaptation. And whether it's making up your own singing call figures and learning how to do the timing on it, or adapting one from a previous, another singing call, that's what we're all about here today. Okay, our first panelist is going to be Mr. Tom Rudebock, and I have 4 pages to read about him. And he's paying me $10 to read this. Tom called his first tip as he was a freshman in high school. Here you go. You want to date him? He started calling hoedown dances on a regular schedule in 1959. Born in 1941. Okay? In the 70s, he began teaching modern Western square dancing to 4-H'ers, etc. Now he averages about 200 dances a year, so I'm sure he does a lot of singing calls during that year. Let's see. Tom also, another thing that qualifies him well for this is that he's the reviewer for all the singing calls and all the records that come through to be reviewed in American Square Dance magazine. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to hand this wireless microphone over to Tom and let him take it away. Tom Rudebock.
Thank you. Our goal in adapting singing calls should be to give the dancers a wind-in-the-face experience without having to rush through a sequence or to stand and wait for the sequence to begin. When we think about this, why would we want or need to adapt a singing call? New dancer situation. Adapt to the progress of the class. Personally, I do singing calls from the first tip. I work and I prefer my new classes, if that you will, to be as close as possible to a dance format. I don't want them to be close order drill. Another reason why you would want to adapt a singing call is good music you like, but the cue sheet for the record doesn't fit the program you're calling. Older dancers. Some of our people are not moving as fast. Perhaps you're dancing on carpet. Cue sheet figure time too tight for the experience level of the dancers you're calling to. Believe it or not, there's some cue sheets out there the figures don't work. You'd never do anything like that. I didn't think so. Check the figures for timing and a promenading starting position quadrant, and we'll talk more about this. Dancers get behind, and maybe you need to short time a tip to get everybody caught up so you can use your marvelous singing voice and sing all those taglines. Maybe you have a chance to record a singing call. I've had that opportunity. Joe's done several of them. Frank, you done any singing calls? Okay. Your opportunity is in the waiting. The other reason would be for variety, for nothing else. All singing call figures or sequences, for the most part, have 7 sequences. Their opener, 2 figures, a break, 2 figures, and a closer. most, and I say most, are 64-beat sequences. There are a few, and I'm not aware of any of the newer releases that are different than 64, but there are some of the older ones out there that have either a short break or maybe an 80-beat figure. Each sequence is somewhat or much like our hash tips. You got a get in, a figure, and a get out. But they're all structured to the 64-beat sequence. Let's take a look at the structure when adapting a singing call. Quadrants. When you're thinking of a square, think of it being overlaid with a compass, with north at the top. When looking at the square, I like to think of the number 1 couple being in that south quadrant. You know, you got your compass, you got north, south. Depends on where you were, which way you're going. Let's use what I call, and if you read the review, is what I just strictly list. I don't write out the figure. It's a standard Ferris wheel figure. Heads promenade half, square through 4, right and left through, veer left, Ferris wheel, square through 3, swing corner promenade. At this time, that mainstream timing chart is going to be one of your best friends. It's on the back page of, and I apologize, you only have the front half of a 2-page document. How much? The problem is I didn't bribe my wife enough when she copied this stuff for me, and she missed the back page. But I think you'll get the gist of it. But this document is a free download off the internet. But let's just take a look at breaking that figure down, and I think that'll give you an idea of what we can do going down the road. Heads promenade half. From a static square, it takes 8 beats. After that, you've got 56 beats left. Square through 4 down the middle is 8 beats. Gives you 48 beats left. Right and left through is 6 beats. So you got 42 left. Veer left is only 2 beats, so it gives you 40. Ferris wheel, 6 beats. That brings us down to 34. Square through 3 is 6 beats, which brings you down to 28. Swing corner. We've got people that will do a 4-beat swing, do an 8-beat swing, depending how good of swingers they are. Let's use an average of 6. So that brings us down to 22. The promenade home, 20 beats. Why do I say 20? If you take a look at that quadrant, where that singing call figure ends up, you're going to end up in that west side. Takes you 4 beats to get home. And we've all taught our dancers, now I'm sure we all have, that when you're less than a quarter or less home, you go all the way around. So it takes 16 beats to get around, clear around. So that promenade is 20 beats. If you add all those together, and with that 6-beat swing, I think I've lost my place. You got 2 beats left. Very short waiting time. It could probably be said this is about as nearly perfectly timed as you can get for experienced dancers on a good surface. Without a doubt, a wind-in-the-face experience. What could be the downside of perfect timing? What if we as callers take those first 2, 3, 4 beats of that phrase saying heads promenade half? So immediately we had 2 beats left on the way I had this timed out. Immediately we've lost those 2 beats. If we drag out our timing, prompt it late, we've lost a little more time. So you're going to see those dancers starting to rush. This is a bad habit for many of us, and I'll take credit. I've done it myself. I'm forcing myself to prompt the next series of call in the last bit of that promenade, just to give, in an effort to give the dancers that first beat of music. But those of us who like to sing and like to hear our voices, we want to sing all those taglines. We're sounding great to ourselves, but we're actually cheating the dancers out of that first downbeat on that next phrase. If we have a perfectly timed call, what if the floor has a hiccup? For whatever reason, they haven't finished a previous sequence. Maybe they're dancing on a sticky or carpeted floor. Maybe you have some inexperienced dancers. True. The figure is different or difficult. Maybe the figure doesn't flow. I have seen some of these singing call figures that the body flow is just not there. Yeah, it will work, but the body flow don't flow you through it. Is it necessary for us to write all of our own singing call figures? No. There are many sources available out there. If you got a good piece of music you like, and maybe you're in a class situation, change the figure. Find another singing or cue sheet that you like. Make sure it works. There are some books out there. Palomino had one on singing through mainstream, singing through plus, and those books all have the figures broken down, including what figures they use. There are a couple of websites out there. I think Vic Cedar has a lot of singing calls on his website. There's a couple others I'm sure I've seen. The important things are to make sure that the timing so the dancers are not standing and waiting for the next sequence to begin and that the figure flows. Kinesiology. Don't have that body turning to the right and abruptly turn it to the left. When you found or written a figure you like, walk it and count the beats to make sure it works. Check out to see which quadrant you end up in when you're doing that swing or that do-si-do to the promenade. If you're in the wrong quadrant, I'm not going to say there's a wrong quadrant, but depending on the quadrant you're in is how many beats you need for the promenade. As callers, we need to be well acquainted with the phrasing of the music to deliver the calls in a correctly timed manner. Most, but not all, most singing call figures can be adapted to a singing call. But again, you have to know your music so that you know exactly where to place your cues and or clues so that the dancers have that dance experience without hiccups. Let's look at a little bit of variety. Take a look at how many figures, including our hash tips that start with heads square through 4 or heads promenade half. You know, I was looking at some old material, and I honestly went back and listened to some presentations before that had been done at the CALLERLAB convention before. And then I started thinking about Tom Rudebock. How many we do that start with square through 4? Let's look at for some variety. I've started using heads, box, and that and slide through, which puts you in that facing corner position. Or heads promenade, half, box, and that slide through, which puts you in an across the street box. Or a touch a quarter, heads or sides, touch quarter, boys run. These are just a couple of examples that I think we need to look at. Let's add a little variety without getting difficult. In other words, different but not difficult. Is it going to be easy? For some of us, yes. For some of us, it's going to take a little more work. But I am here to tell you that I think the work will pay off.
Thank you, Tom. Let's give Tom a hand. Thank you, Tom. Nice job. I think we have a question. We need you on the microphone, and if you could please state your name, your age.
Al Napi, Sunnyvale, California. I noticed you were talking about beats per call. Now, what list are we supposed to use? On some lists, it's 10 beats. Some other list, 8 beats. You say square through 4 is 8 beats. This list I got in my hand said 10 beats. What standard are we using?
I believe there's a standardized CALLERLAB timing sheet, correct? You want to address that?
The one I'm looking at is revised timing the basic mainstream programs, revised January 1st, 2008. I think where our discrepancy comes from is it starting from a static square or with the bodies on the move. Square through from a static square for 4 people, a full square through 4 is 10 beats. Box of 4, where I had the promenade coming into the center, which puts you in a box of 4, is 8 beats. You follow me? We're not talking about cheating.
Or doing the patty cake thing. Gee. Oh, I can do it. I need the exercise. Okay. For those on the CD, we're walking back to Charlie Fagan because he can't make it this far.
Thanks, Joe. One of the things for variety that we don't use anymore is right-hand lady progression in singing calls. And it gives the dancers a different feel, of different choreography, too. And I think it's a lost art, personally.
Brad Smith from Indiana. All right. What's the right-hand lady progression? I've only been calling for a few years. These guys started laughing, and it's like, there you go.
That's a great question. It's a great lead-in. I love segues. Okay. Frank Lescrinier, he's been a square dancer since 1984 and began attending his first scholar school in 85. Now, he's taught numerous collar schools. What did he pay me to say here? He is the only accredited collar coach in the state of California, ladies and gentlemen. So,
but Scott Byers is right behind him.
Yes, okay. So, anyway, he's been in a lot of panels. He's done a lot of traveling. He currently calls through C3A. However, his heart's still in mainstream and plus, and he's going to give you his views on singing calls. Let's give Frank a big hand.
Thank you, Joe. Even though I do call through C3A, right now I have 2 beginners classes, and I work for a handy-capable group. So my heart is down at the where the dancers are and where I have as much fun as anything. I was only asked to do this panel about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had some people that couldn't make it, so actually Joe and I are both filling in. And so I looked at the title, and it said Singing Call Adaptation. And I'm trying to think of why do we change the singing call? I know when I first started calling, I married everything to whatever was on the other side of the record. I thought it was sacrilege that you would change it, because the caller that I learned from, he was very old school, and he did the same thing. He did the same figures 4 times. We knew it was very anticipatory. We knew exactly what was coming. And then I started branching out and going, well, I think we can do more than this. So some of the reasons we adapt our singing calls are sometimes we have to fit the dance programs in their presentation techniques. You're calling a plus dance, and you have a mainstream singing call, quote unquote, figure. Well, you can call it a plus dance, but you can't reverse it if you're married to it. You might be doing a workshop or you're teaching your class, and you've taught and you've drilled them and you've talked it, danced it, enhanced it, and now you want to let them dance those calls that they just learned in a singing call in a very friendly atmosphere. Usually dancers tend to let down a little bit during singing calls. This is time to relax. You've just grilled us for the patter part. Now it's just time to relax and do the fun part of the tip. But doing what they just learned in a singing call enhances what they just learned in a non-threatening environment. Sometimes we want to substitute calls to create more interesting and varied singing calls. The standard, square through 4, swing through, spin the top right, left through, square through 3. Don't write that down, Robert. You've seen it before. Do some stuff that's a little bit different. Maybe after the right and left through, roll away, and then boys roll the girl away, girls roll the boy away, swing what you rolled away. Oh, that's something different, and they don't care if they just did the same thing, 3, 4 times. But as Tom mentioned, I'll bet if you went into your case, your record case or computer, and you pulled out 5 records and looked at the singing call, how does that first figure start? A head square through 4, or sometimes a promenade half. And I didn't realize it until a dancer came up to me and said, would you please, I have 2 favors, would you please call a tip without a square through and without an Alaman left? And you think, well, that's easy. And then you start thinking about it. And we're so crushed, we rely so much on square through that when you take it out of your arsenal, you have to think of other things. So some of the other equivalents, you guys should have a whole bunch of them in your repertoire. Plus, if I've been working load the boat, you have the center or the heads roll away and do the centers part load the boat. It's the same as a square through 4. Okay. It's going to feel weird to them because they don't realize that they're dancing half sashayed. The centers are half sashayed, but now you roll them away and they're feeling, ooh, this is really weird, and they struggle through it, and then they see their corner, and then there's a sense of accomplishment. Yeah. By the way, these are recorded. You may buy them at $25 for the entire thing. So, yes. And that's about when I realized that I was guilty of calling too many square throughs. So I don't call very many square throughs on a singing call to start. There's just too many other things to call. Heads past the ocean, girls trade, recycle, pass through. Just something different. It takes about the same time, so it's not going to mess up your timing. There's 3 major constraints that we have. There's dancer knowledge. Do they know the calls? The time that we have to do. Again, we're bound by 64 beats. How many of you have ever, especially in a beginner's class, let's say you're teaching square through, and you call square through, and it took 40 beats to do square through. And, my time's running out. Swing your corner and promenade because you ran out of time. You don't do the whole singing call figure. You have to know where you're at. So you need to know how much time it takes to do what you're asking me. Sometimes you have to cut out a do-si-do or a touch a quarter scoop back or whatever it is. Bottom line is you want to present it so that the dancers are having fun. We keep saying fun, but are we all really cognizant? Oh, computer just died. Are they having fun? Are they having smiles on their faces? You guys know how you're calling a successful dance, right? You look at the dancer's feet. If they're walking into your dance, that's good. If they're walking out, that's not good. So look at the dancer's feet and see if they're having fun. Where do I want to go? Well, that's coming. I was looking at Tom going, well, okay, that's shot. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Some calls, a singing call like Fisherman's Luck. I can't do that one. That's just too many words, and I'm lazy. I guess I just don't want to work that hard to do that. But if you don't nail that with a rat-a-tat-a-rat-a-tat-a-rat-a-tat-a-tat, you're going to be behind, and the dancers are going to be behind, as opposed to just a nice melody, a crooning song. You have more time for your words to put them in. Sometimes your records, I don't have it on my computer, Colors of the Wind. There's a lot of verses in Colors of the Wind. And it's a nice song, but there's more verses than what we can actually put in there. So let's say the third figure, instead of saying head square through 4, say head, lady, center, teacup, chain. So you've got 32 beats. Now you can sing another verse, do a square through 4 equivalent, have them swing their corner and promenade. Now you've got another verse to the song, because there are more than 4 verses or 3 verses in that song. So change a little bit so that your singing call has more meaning, because the more verses in that song, it means more. I don't know which CALLERLAB it was. Randy, I don't know if you remember when Triple Scoot was talked about dropping off the Plus program. How long ago was that? Yeah. And there were people all up in airs. Oh, my God, I can't use that singing call now. Same thing with Curly Q when Curly Q was taken off. Oh, that singing call, I can't use it anymore. Not realizing, okay, touch a quarter can pretty much do the same thing, close to the same timing. Triple scoot and scoot back, they're going to triple scoot anyway and come back to the same person. So it really does. Now, is it really affecting your choreography? So don't get married to singing call figures. There are a couple that I think are sacrilege to change. Maybe summer sounds. Summer sounds, I don't know, I have a hard time doing that. But I have tried. It's not on the list anymore. Grand Colonel Spin, when that was on, and the Colonel Bogey Mark, and I use that as patter, and I'll tell you, the dancers hate me for it. So, maybe I better not do it, because they want to do that, and I'm just using it because I like the music. So you have to be careful on that. If you're calling, let's say the singing call figures on it are something to get you to your corner and then relay the do-si, and you're calling a mainstream dance, do a do-si-do and 8-chain 4. It times out about the same way, and just don't be bogged down by what's on the cue sheet. Some ways that we can adapt or change. How many of you guys out there on your corner progressions, we'll get to the other one for later, do a heads and heads and then sides and sides? So the first 2 figures are heads and the next 2 figures are sides. And we tend to do that. But there's other ways we can do it to add a little variety or adapt the situation. We can go heads, sides, sides, heads. Or sides, sides, heads, heads. Heads think they're going to go first. Or sides, heads, head, sides. Now, why would you not want to do head, sides, head, sides? It's the same girl. So you have to be careful. You have to know. We've got a good group here. But, be careful how you mix this up, because then the girls don't get to play with all the guys, and that's why they paid their big bucks. The right-hand lady progression. Okay. We know that they go from their partner to their corner to their opposite to the right-hand lady. So a right-hand lady progression goes to the right-hand lady, opposite, corner, partner. So it goes the other way around. I have some examples of, and I printed these out 2 nights ago, and I don't have copies. Actually, you can go on ceder.net, CEDER.net, Vic Ceder's website, and he has quite a few mainstream and plus right-hand lady progression singing calls. Example, head 2 ladies chain, side 2 ladies chain, head couples promenade 3/4, side ladies chain, same 2 pass through, swing the one you face. It's basically getting you to swing your right-hand lady. You know what I'm saying? You get your right-hand lady opposite corner. So they're going in the other direction, clockwise. That's a right-hand lady progression. Caveat. If you're going to do one right-hand lady progression, you got to do 4 of them. Because they're going to keep... If you do a right-hand lady and then you do... Huh? But they're not going to get to play with... They're going to go harass, and then they're going to come back, and the one person won't get to dance. Yeah. So beware on that right-hand lady progression. You've got to do 4 of them, but it is different. And they may look at you like, this isn't right. This feels funny or whatever. But it's different. We've adapted, and we've created something that maybe it's outside of their comfort zone. I would love to see callers give the dancers the first beat. So many times we as callers take the first beat for ourselves. When I started watching Contra and how the Contra dancers have that first beat to dance, it's not, let's see if I can, I'm looking for an example. Check the sound, I don't know if it's... Well, here's the traditional four ladies promenade. Get back, swing there with your date. You're gonna join up and circle to the left, go walk, walk, walking it around that set. Do an element left, weave that ring. Though you have done me wrong, your memories still linger on. Swing your girl and promenade. I'll never love again, oh, since you said this is the end, oh, why must I ever say goodbye? Heads promenade, halfway around, so they got that first beat instead of me taking it. Gives them a couple extra beats for the figure. So many times we wait and we take the first 2 or 3, whatever to call, and that's going to cut into the timing of the 64 beats. It's selfish of us, but I don't know why we don't do it more often. Did I explain the right-hand lady progression to you? Yeah, well, and I know we do it more so in the pattern music where we just start wherever we want. And yet, boy, doesn't it feel funny when you call a grand square in the pattern and you haven't got that first beat for them? They're on the 3rd or 4th beat, and it just doesn't feel right. That's about all I have for flexibility and adaptations of singing calls.
Hey. Do we have any questions? Any questions? We have a question. Okay, I'm going to be Phil Donahue here and walk around. So, how you doing today? Hey, be sure to give your name, okay?
Alan Hirsch from Colorado. I'm concerned with the overflow of some of the singing calls in terms of being very tight on the timing. And how do you introduce equivalence to make some of the calls shorter in time?
All right, so instead, cut it shorter so they have more time to dance. So instead of heads square 3, 4, say heads touch a quarter boy run. That doesn't take 10 beats. Okay, so in the middle, the question was they get a little behind in the middle of the sequence, and then you're trying to get you to your corner. A lot of times the calls have a touch a quarter scoot back or some type of fluff in there. Leave that out. What do you do, Joe?
I hand the microphone to Tom.
It's what experience gets you. Many, not all, but many of our singing calls have a do-si-do in them someplace. Drop that out. That'll give you some timing. There are times that I have seen, personally, I have felt that I'm in a spot that I can't get them out, so I'll let my promenade go into the next figure. Just to get the back, and then I will short time the next figure. Right, wrong, that's the way I have done it. But if you're in the middle of a figure and you can't cut any fluff out, and you see that they're behind, I'll let them take the promenade, and then I'll start the next figure later. Granted, I'm not giving them the first beat unless I know where my phrasing is. If you know your phrasing on your music, you can give them that first beat. And then short time your figure to get them back on. Okay, let's take an example. We do if I want to get them, instead of a heads promenade halfway square through 4, I'll do a head star through pass through. I've eliminated that promenade and the full square through. That's just one example that comes to mind real quick because I use it quite frequently in my classes. As I mentioned earlier, I want my classes or new dancer sessions to feel like a dance. I will sacrifice timing to let them have a dance feel. I do my best not to sacrifice body flow. Not saying I always succeed, but I will sacrifice some timing to let them have that dance feel.
Okay, we have another question out there too. Yes.
And the other thing is, if it's the first figure or the third figure, and you see that they're going to be running behind, and you what do you call short time it, because you're going to want to get them home, because if there's a grand square at the closer or the middle or something, Four Ladies Promenade or whatever, you want to get them home. So that's why if it's the first or third one, you want to make sure that you get the second or fourth one short-timed to get them to where you can do the closer. I mean, nothing worse than they're promenading, they're really behind, and then you've got a grand square, and you don't know what to do other than the grand square, and then they're behind, and then the whole end of it feels crummy.
Good. Please state your name, sir.
If you like me, my name is Bob Van West. If you don't like me, my name is Joe Saltel. What I do is I adjust where the dancers are going to end for a swing and promenade. I'll end them at the number 2 position, and that'll give me enough time to get the grand square in. Or if I know that they're really, really behind, I say, when you're home, do a sides face grand square when you get home. And dancers really respond well to that as well.
Alternatively, it turns into a patter call.
Greg Anderson, Colorado. This only makes a fraction of a difference, just a very small amount of difference. But if you know you're behind on the figure, and you're going to would normally do a ladies' chain or a ladies' promenade when they get home for the break or the end, have the gents' promenade because they're closer to the center of the circle already when they're heading home. So they can, in essence, start the 4 men promenade before they even get home, just kind of leave the lady there at the home position, so you gain a little bit of time with that. And back on the point of the right-hand progression, he indicated very much that you have to be sure and do it 4 times. When you get to my age, and you occasionally can have a senior moment, you really must concentrate to make sure that you do it 4 times and don't revert back to a corner progression.
And your age, sir?
Lawrence Johnstone, Ukiah, California. One of the things that was mentioned as shortening the rest of a singing call, one of the things that I've found is if I've got a singing call figure that ends from facing lines, you do a square through 3 to swing the corner. And that's generally a full promenade back home. If I replace that square through 3 with pass through, bend the line, slide through, swing the corner, it's an equivalent. But it does 2 things. The pass through, bend the line, slide through takes a little bit less time than the square through 3. It also moves the swing over into that north quadrant, and you only have to do half a promenade. So it reduces the time there also.
Good comment, Lawrence. Okay, we're moving to the back of the room here. Very young man.
Robert Morris from California. On the right-hand progression, I thought of something slightly different. Heads are doing a right-hand progression. Sides are doing a left-hand progression. So they're going different directions. Okay, let me say it again. All right. Head ladies are doing a right-hand progression. But the side ladies are doing the left-hand progression. They're going the other direction. Yes, they can. The other one I've been thinking of, I've tried to switch figures sometimes in calls, and the music sometimes does not fit the figure you're trying to put to it. It just doesn't fit. What do you do at that point there?
Is it's more than 64 beat? The dancers aren't completing it. Oh, so you're trying to say something where there's instrumentation. Then change the figure. There's a million figures out there. Yeah.
Brad Smith from Indiana again. A real good example of that is Mamma Mia. The figure that they put on the Mamma Mia paperwork puts the men in the middle to load the boat, and forget it. It just throws them completely out of sync, and you crash and burn every time you try. So you've got to do another figure.
That's right. Frank made a good point. That's why they've tried to standardize a lot of the singing call figures to mainstream, some with a little bit of plus, but they try to keep it at mainstream, at least these days.
Dee Dee Doherty's brother.
Your age, please, sir?
Old. I started thinking about when we were doing singing calls at some of the conventions where they have a wood floor down, and it seems like, if it's taped down or whatever, how that floor goes over towards the edge of the walls, and then the tape comes up and the wall and the floor starts, crackling and buckling. And it's because we do so much clockwise rotation stuff. So then I started thinking, what if we started doing an equal level of counterclockwise? And I kind of coined up a phrase called, I can't spell it, but no, it's not fix the floor. No, it's called, I had to look it up how to spell it, ambidextrous. So, the figure head square through 4, right-hand star, heads back to the left-hand star, back to the outside, swing through, boy run, Ferris wheel, pass through. I started doing left square through 4, left-hand star, back to the middle right-hand star, back to the outsides, left swing through. If you're going to say boys run, you're going to get screwed up. You've got to make sure you say girls run. Ferris wheel, and it's an uphill Ferris wheel. Pass through, or you can say a left pass through, which will create some excitement. And then swing corner. So you just do everything wrong, and it comes out right, and the floor won't buckle. Now, fix the floor. Now, you got to be careful. Like the one figure, if you do it ambidextrous, the one that's been copyrighted by Royal Records, which a lot of you have not been paying your commissions on that figure. Heads promenade half, square through 4, and right and left through, and veer left Ferris wheel, and square through 3. That's actually copyrighted. But if you think about it, you say the heads, instead of doing a normal promenade, what way you want to go? Well, it's wrong way promenade or reverse promenade, whatever you want to do. Instead of a square through 4, then it's a left square through 4. Now you have a problem, because if you say left and right through, you're going to have stuff thrown at you. But you just remember the momentum. So I usually say reverse circle, half, that equals the left and right through. Instead of a veer left, it'll be a veer, which is with the momentum. And then Ferris wheel again is uphill, and go through that. You can adapt the singing call figures you already have by doing things. How do you spell that, Scott? Ambidextrous. I don't really care. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out for you, Joe.
Nice antediluvial. Yeah.
There is one singing call figure that I hate to dance it, I hate to see it, I hate to hear it. Heads promenade halfway, come down the middle with the right and left through, square through 4, and the sides have sent out for pizza. All they did was go in the middle, do a little bump, come back, and why would you have two couples active for that whole time without engaging the sides? I mean, that's the one singing call figure that I just do not like at all.
Maybe the heads are better dancers.
It's okay in a class situation. Sorry. Bob Van West. It's okay in a class situation, that particular figure, because you're in a class situation and you're featuring one of those calls. And the sides get to look on because the sides are looking, they're dumbfounded anyways, but they're looking on to see what the heads are doing because they know they're going to be doing it next. So I wouldn't do it in a dance, but I would do it in class because it's great for teaching.
When Randy was talking about the, what do you call it, ambidextrous calling, in other words, turning it back the other direction, I saw some of you guys going, I'd never do that. I could see you guys forget it. But you could build up to it in your previous patter call before you do it in the first part of the tip and do some of that stuff, make sure they can get through it all, and then that'll give you some success, and you'll really impress some people, I think, impress your dancers with the variety.
Going back to what Joe and Randy said, you can get dancers through a lot of material, and if you build to it, I know we got a lot of calls we try to work in, but theme your dances. Where do you want it to end up? Start with step 1. Maybe you want to get to step 10. But it might take you all night to get there. And this is just what Randy and Joe are speaking to. You can't do it, at least what I call for. You can't do it cold. But if you build up to it, you can get success.
For the record, ambidextrous is AMBIDEXTROUS.
Definition, please.
Use both hands.
Using both hands, that's right. Okay.
Lawrence Johnstone again. I'd like to comment on something that Frank said earlier about wanting to use more of the lyrics of the singing call. I've noticed on a number of singing calls with that 7-part layout, they will produce them with one part of the original song for the opener, break, and closer, and a different part for the figures. And the different part, of course, has different lyrics in the original song. And in order to work those in, what I'll do sometimes is I'll do the opener and then 3 figures, a figure in place of the middle break. Postpone the middle break 1 slot so that it lines up with the second part of the song, and then use that with the lyrics of the second part of the song there. Works out very well. Did I pick that up from you, Joe?
I think that's kind of what Frank said earlier about Colors of the Wind. Yeah. You done? Okay. Yeah, earlier. Any other questions, folks? Anybody have any ideas, questions? There he is. I need the exercise.
Bob Jones, Royal High. I'd like to have a little more reflection on the left-hand progression and the right-hand progression, because it will work. It is fantastic, and the dancers look at you like, what in the world did you just do? They do it, but they're just totally dumbfounded. Expand on it if you would, please.
I'm Robert Morris. I'm very new at calling, and this is one of the things I just thought of one day is have one go one direction, the other go the other direction. There's no reason why we couldn't. It's just different. Unfortunately, I can't do an example. I have it written up in my room someplace, so I have to go out, hunt it down. It's almost like you make a mistake, and you get the 2 girls flipped out, then you put them back in. In a normal singing call, you think of it.
I think he's referring to, if we do any kind of a singing call that would have the girls end up in the position that they would into after the first singing call of the head ladies chaining to the right and the side ladies chaining to the left. And then the second figure, you would have to end up with the side ladies chaining to the right and the head ladies chaining to the left. And then go through those 2 things again for the last 2 figures, which would get everybody back home.
My name is Rayal Caron from Prince Edward Island, Canada. I'm a new caller, calling for 4 years or so. Our club is getting really old in age and movement, and it's not easy when you follow your program with the 64 beats and you realize tonight a lot of them are really stiff. So I have a hard time with this, I really do. So I don't know if you have any suggestion. And my second question to you, Frank, you mentioned earlier that there were 3 parts. The first one was dancer knowledge. What was the second and third part? I didn't hear it.
The first, I'll do the first one first and the second. The first one, I would personally eliminate star through, California twirl, and dive through. If they're achy and doing the arm, we have equivalents that can get by with that part of it. You don't want to do anything that will turn them. No overflow, trying to keep it simple. I call for a handy-capable group, so I really have to limit what I can call to them, and my timing it's out the door. You just do whatever you can to get them through it. So in that case, I can't play by the rules. Sometimes you can't play by the rules when you've got. I've called for Leisure World and some of the older groups, and they don't move as quickly. So you have to give them that extra beat. If it takes them 14 beats to square through, then give them 14 beats. You want to make sure you don't rush them, because if they get rushed, they're going to be gone. Second one, I had the 3 parts. Oh, yeah. Dancer knowledge, the time that it takes to do the call, and then the word metering. How long does it take to say certain calls? You don't want to get that in the way of the music. If you've got, go back here to the music. Why don't you take this to Randy? I'll get the music.
Yeah, Randy Doherty. I'm not sure about this guy's question. Was slowing the tempo down, did that help seniors get through a properly timed figure? Is that what your question is? Not really.
Were you saying, though, that some of your seniors were having a hard time getting through the figure? Possible solution might be to slow the tempo? Keep it properly timed, but slow the tempo of your record. That's what we were wondering.
Yeah, sometimes that'll help, but I remember a suggestion the very first time I started calling in a retirement park. That was what my solution was to slow the tempo down to get them through it. And this little 90-year-old lady said, "Randy, we're old, we're not dead. Speed up the tempo." So. But going back to this gentleman up in the front about the right-hand lady going right and the corner lady going the other way, all it really is like a heads either lead left box or lead right box, okay? So vision that. Heads lead to the right and everyone's star through. I look at that as he's got my girl and I got his girl. We're in lines. And they're out of sequence. But so you sight call. So you pass the ocean. Now you're in the right. Now you're back in sequence. Do a 0, swing through, boy, run, wheel and deal, swing, promenade, depending on the nature of the experience of the dancers. But that's what that gentleman is talking about, okay? So instead of thinking across the street and 0 boxes all the time, just think of it as a lead left box or a lead right box. Do your progression. Just be careful that sometimes, depending on the nature of the call, it can make a big difference which gent is on the end of the line. What's the word I'm looking for, Scott, that we've talked about? Certain figures will work perfect if you bend the line. We used to say bend the line and you wouldn't change the sequence, right? But it does change sometimes. So you got to be careful of who you're working and that kind of thing. Yeah. Have you heard of technical zeros, where sometimes it might have a 4-lady effect? Some of these things do that too.
Scott Bennett, Oklahoma. I typically don't like to change the tempo of my songs much. If I need to help them a little bit, I usually just cut the number of calls. I'll cut my actual, instead of 64 beat figure, I'll trim it up. Do some things to give them more time to get it done. Maybe it's not as smooth, but it doesn't throw me as off trying to perform the thing the way I need to perform it. If I start slowing it down, then it feels draggy to me, and I'm going to get concerned like Randy got. Hey, we're slow, but we're not dead.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, comments? Age, please.
Tim Kane from Oregon. Getting back to where you don't have enough time to sing some of these nice songs I have out there. I've gotten to downloading the song off the internet and then changing the complete figure so I can get the song. And then we have our record producers that right in the middle, they put some garbage that doesn't go with it. I edit it out on my computer and put something else in there so that it feels right to me and the dancers.
You could start a new business. Yeah. No, of course not. Of course not. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments or anything? Nothing? All righty. Okay. Hey, let's give our two panelists a big hand. Tom Rudebock, Frank Lescrinier. I'm Joe Saltel. Thank you, guys. And just keep it light. Remember that it's for the dancers' entertainment, and that's entertainment. All righty. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.